It was a single orb, a hero's magic crystal that everyone dreamed of possessing. Some would spend billions just to get their hands on one, because using it could awaken a person to become a hero. Yet this man held 7 of them in his grasp. He was originally the strongest sword god from a world facing destruction, because the world he lived in had been invaded by monsters. He had no choice but to fight against these creatures. Day after day it went on, year after year, for 10 grueling years. I became the world's strongest sword god. In the final boss battle, though I successfully slayed the ultimate enemy, my body was already battered beyond recognition. Before losing consciousness, I felt myself being pulled into something. I thought this was death itself, but when I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a blindingly white space. Before me stood a young boy. He told me his name was Seo Dujun. He was dying. He asked me to grant him one request, and then he would quietly disappear. But I refused him on the spot, because I no longer had any attachment to life. After fighting desperately for 10 years, my country had fallen to ruin. My friends were dead, my family gone. For me, no matter how I continued living, life would be nothing more than this. But seeing Seo Dujun's condition, I couldn't bring myself to be heartless. I agreed to his request to keep his grandmother and sister safe in the most secure home possible. When I awoke, I had become Seo Dujun. To earn money for the safest house, I decided to enter the portal, forcing my way in without hero status. Upon entering, I encountered several people. From my appearance, they could tell. They realized I wasn't a hero. They kindly urged me to leave immediately. I knew they were looking out for me, but I felt no gratitude. My arrogant attitude displeased them. They restrained their impulse to teach me a lesson. Later, deep in the forest, I encountered my first magic beast. The bloodthirsty creature lunged at me, but I dodged its massive frame. In a flash, I appeared behind the beast. With one punch I crushed its skull. Then I searched through the beast's corpse, and extracted a low-grade magic crystal. In the past, I wouldn't have even glanced at such inferior goods, but now I had no choice but to take it. That's when I sensed movement behind me. A magic beast appeared, preparing to attack. I simply ducked down and evaded the strike. Then, I hurled the magic crystal in my hand with tremendous force, blowing off one beast's head. But these creatures showed no fear of death. They continued charging at me without hesitation. Meanwhile, since I had entered without authorization, control center agents were rushing to my location. They were all elite B rank or higher. Just as I finished off all the magic beasts, and was preparing to leave with a backpack full of crystals, these agents finally found me. They stopped me, demanding I show my hero registration certificate. If unregistered, I would have to come with them. I was thoroughly confused, having no idea what they were after. Seeing I had no intention of cooperating, they planned to use physical restraint, warning me that if I resisted, any resulting bodily harm would be entirely my own responsibility. At this, I grabbed the man's hand, warning them to stop bothering me, telling them to get lost. Clearly, these agents weren't listening. Instead, they drew weapons, ready to use force. So I gripped the agent's hand even tighter. This was my final warning. Go back if you don't want to get hurt. But in the end, they still didn't heed my words. However, they were simply too weak. They couldn't even touch me. I merely lifted my foot slightly, driving my knee upward. One man was sent flying. Then I followed through with a kick, launching him away. Seeing their companion so easily defeated, one agent broke out in a cold sweat. At that moment, I turned to face him. The next second, my form vanished and reappeared. My fist connected with this agent's abdomen. His body staggered back several steps, his face filled with disbelief at my strength. Afterward, I learned some things from questioning him. If you're not a registered hero, you cannot enter the portal's interior. The same goes for rift zones. These so-called rift zones are pathways for magic beasts to reach this world. Hunting beasts here yields magic crystals, which serve as the nation's new energy source. Therefore, the country completely controls these passages. The places where magic beasts are contained are called portals, while spatial areas not yet converted to portals are known as rift zones. After learning all this, I paid no more attention to these agents. Leaving the place on my own, I planned to sell the crystals I'd collected, so I randomly found a shop and dumped out all the crystals from my backpack. Looking at the blood-stained crystals, the clerk showed obvious disgust, but he still had me wait with coffee. After a brief wait, he calculated the price for these crystals, but wanted to charge a 40% processing fee. With such an outrageous fee, I had to question it. That's when the clerk's attitude completely changed, arrogantly telling me I could take them back if I didn't want to sell. Hearing this, I immediately packed the crystals back. Suddenly, the clerk grabbed my hand, demanding I pay an appraisal fee, trying to charge me $1,000. I shook off his hand, telling him to take it if he could. Now the clerk became even more arrogant, threatening me. He had several C-rank heroes backing him up. As he spoke, several large men opened the door and walked in, asking the clerk who was causing trouble. Their eyes immediately locked onto mine. Before long, the clerk was cowering behind the counter, trembling, because I had easily defeated the C-rank heroes he'd called. Less than 30 seconds had passed since it all began. Then I approached the clerk again, stating the processing fee would be 1%, and future transactions would be this straightforward. Afterward, I returned home with a stack of money. Grandmother and sister looked at me in disbelief, asking what this money was. I had to make up some lies to get by. Fortunately, grandmother believed my story, but my younger sister, despite her age still, my little sister didn't have such complicated thoughts. She happily asked me, "Big brother, are we rich now?" I ruffled her small head, telling her that someday we would be. The little one danced around the house with joy. Watching all this silently, I realized this wasn't so bad after all. But to buy the safest house in H country, this rate of earning money was still too slow. If my power were fully restored, this amount of money would be nothing. Moreover, the monsters in this world were far weaker than those in my destroyed realm. For me, a sword god, this place was like children playing house. But now my strength hadn't even recovered 10%. Suddenly, knocking at the door interrupted my thoughts. I told grandmother I'd answer it and ran to open the door. Upon opening it, I found two small-time thugs. I knew they were here to collect debts, because the previous CO Jun had borrowed from loan sharks for grandmother's medical expenses, but the debt had multiplied tenfold in such a short time. Facing these people, I couldn't be bothered to waste words. With one punch, I sent one of the thugs flying, because just the money paid during this period had already exceeded the principal. Now they should be paying me instead. The thug looked at me and trembled with fear. I raised my fist, telling him to inform their boss that I'd be coming to see him soon. After saying this, I knocked this thug down too. Since I'd earned money, I should take my adorable sister out to play. Looking at the stuffed animals displayed on the counter, my sister squealed with delight, but in the end, because of the high price, she chose a small one. Seeing this, I directly picked up the large teddy bear and took it out, though my sister didn't say anything. I knew this was the one she really wanted, because she had been staring at it for so long. Afterward, I took my sister for burgers and fries. Just as we were enjoying our happy time, a voice that filled me with disgust appeared behind us. "Isn't this CO Jun? That's your sister beside you, right? What is she wearing? So shabby and messy, just like your mother. Hey kid, do you know what the word bitch means?" Hearing this, I finally couldn't hold back and cursed. "You ugly bitch, hideous as a beast." Speaking of this bitch, I had to recall CO Jun's past as a bastard child, living in poverty. When his mother died at age 7, he barely made it to his biological father's house, living over 10 years in contempt and scorn. After his father's legitimate wife bore a son, he was completely cast aside, then thrown out, living with his grandmother and his stepfather's sister whom he'd just met. I didn't know what kind of feelings CO Jun had endured all of this with, but now, things would be different. Standing up, I launched a verbal assault on this bitch. From her appearance, to her personality, and even her brain, I tore everything apart. Just as this bitch was about to explode, another woman suddenly appeared. "Jun, long time no see now." The bitch immediately ran over with a pitiful face. "Mom, do you know what that bastard said to me?" But her mother scolded her to be quiet. "Don't be so ill-mannered." Then very gently greeted me. I knew this was the woman, this utterly hypocritical woman, who had tormented CO Jun the most over 10 years. I showed her no kindness whatsoever, telling her to get the hell away from me. She obviously hadn't expected this attitude from me. In her memory, CO Jun was the type who would bow his head, even after being slapped for no reason. She had no intention of continuing to entangle with me, turning around and quickly leaving. In the car, the younger woman complained to her mother. Why didn't she severely punish CO Jun? But the woman ignored her, instead asking the bald man in front why CO Jun was still alive. The bald man reported that Kong Chul-woo had left CO Jun at the portal entrance. The woman roared, telling the bald man to investigate this matter thoroughly, thinking of how CO Jun dared talk back to her. The woman wanted to eliminate Seo Doo-jun even more. The next day, I came to a loan company. My purpose for coming here was to meet the boss of those small thugs, to make him compensate me for the mental anguish they'd caused me during this time. The small fry discovered my personality had completely changed, thinking I had awakened inside the portal, believing this was my confidence. He arrogantly told me, even if awakened, I was just F-rank trash. He had plenty of such garbage under him. After speaking, several burly men entered, surrounding me completely. The small fry seemed to see my doom, putting on his coat, ready to leave. Then I coldly said, "Sit down, I'm not finished talking yet." Seeing me still so arrogant, the big guys moved to attack me, but I was faster. One punch landed on one man's face, directly sending him flying. While beating them up, I said I knew. You don't just do loan sharking. You also forge identity documents. I'll need a hero registration certificate to make money. Right now, make me a perfect one without any flaws. I want to see it before tomorrow. Seeing my strength, the small fry broke out in a cold sweat, thinking I was a B-rank hero. His attitude immediately changed, agreeing to everything I demanded. But I still had one more thing to ask him, whether Red Spider had sent him to kill me. The small fry clearly didn't want to answer my question, but I wouldn't indulge him. Applying slight pressure to his shoulder, he immediately screamed in pain, then finally answered my question, saying Hong Hee-ju hoped I'd be buried in debt, and then commit suicide myself. After hearing this, I released him, but he didn't know anything about trapping Seo Doo-jun in the portal. I could see he wasn't lying, so I told him to bring me information about Kong Chul-woo tomorrow as well. The next day, I got the forged hero registration certificate, but today I came to a B-rank portal, recommended level, F-rank. That bastard had given me a B-rank hero registration certificate, causing the portal to continuously issue warnings. Below recommended level. After my one-sided slaughter, I finally encountered the boss inside the portal. Thinking to finish it quickly and get out, I swung my fist down with full force, but my fist bounced right off. Clearly my fist had no effect on it. Its hide was too tough. My bare-handed attacks were completely useless. Just as I was getting a headache over this, I suddenly discovered a worn sword on the ground. Though it was a bit old, borrowing it temporarily shouldn't be a problem. The next second my form flashed behind the boss, with one sword strike cutting through. The boss also met its end. At the same time that old sword shattered. After collecting everything from the boss's body, by the time I emerged, it was already night. Conquering a B-rank portal had actually wasted so much time. I knew that recovering my strength was the highest priority for me now. Fortunately, my former companions hadn't seen me in this state. I returned once again to the shop where I'd sold magic crystals before. The clerk still wanted to charge a 40% processing fee, but didn't dare say it to my face. However, this transaction amount was too high. He had to report upward for permission. Just as he was halfway through explaining, I snatched his phone away. I asked if the person on the phone understood clearly. Then hurry up and pay. The person on the phone said they understood for now, returning the phone to their clerk, but I directly threw the phone away. With a bang, the phone embedded itself in the wall. Then I had a pleasant transaction with the clerk. Well, only I found it pleasant. 10 minutes later, the boss rushed over in a hurry. The clerk told the boss he wanted to quit. The boss saw the scene in the shop, so he made a phone call. Moments later, a purple-haired woman appeared at the shop entrance. Seeing who had arrived, the clerk excitedly screamed. This woman was called Hyeon Ju-yin. The hero's purpose for coming here was because she heard her uncle mention someone was forcibly buying crystals, so she wanted to understand the situation. In the time that followed, I tried various methods, attempting to recover my past power, but this world's magic was too sparse. Even collecting magic power like this every day, it would take 3 years or perhaps longer to recover my strength. That's when I suddenly sensed spatial disturbances. I immediately grabbed my sister, who was playing in the yard, and brought her back inside the house. Grandmother anxiously asked what was wrong. Before I could answer, violent tremors came from the ground. I knew this wasn't an earthquake, but a spatial rift occurring. I told grandmother it was dangerous not to come out of the room. Then I dove headfirst into the rift space. At the same time, the Hero Association also detected the new rift. They immediately dispatched nearby heroes to the new rift's location. But what gave them a headache was that the rift had appeared in an ordinary residential area. If an ordinary person entered a new rift, until the person inside came out, no one else could enter. If the person inside died, the rift zone would experience 10 days of monster waves. Soon they confirmed news that someone had entered the new rift, an ordinary person named Seo Dujun. This made them all start worrying, because when ordinary people enter new rifts, the probability of monster waves is 99.9%. At the same time, Hong Heju also learned of Seo Dujun's awakening. This made Hong Heju furious. She told the bald man to contact Kong Chal-woo. If he failed to kill Seo Dujun, he'd have to pay 10 times the money. But then the bald man told her there was no need to contact Kong Chal-woo anymore, because Seo Dujun had already entered a new rift. With F-rank power, it was impossible to come out, so they would never see Seo Dujun again. After I entered the new rift, I arrived at a forest. Looking at everything before me was simply unbelievable. This was actually the Parthia forest I used to visit frequently as a child. Everything here, including the magic power in the atmosphere, even the shape of the sky and clouds, were identical. Following my memory, I found a small path. After going out, I saw the world tree. This was an ancient spirit tree that preserved high purity, magical energy flow. The reason my former world perished was the tree was burned down, causing the magical flow to be destroyed. The world tree here still existed, though I didn't understand the reason. I could once again recover my former magical power. With this thought, I began collecting the world tree's magic. Days passed one by one. Forgetting to eat or drink, I concentrated on breathing for 10 straight days. Just then I sensed movement. It was actually Volcana demons. These were the ones who burned the world tree in the past. Looking at the Volcana attacking me, I thought, if only I had a divine attribute sword right now, but it doesn't matter. I'll crush you all completely. With this thought, I raised my hand. A stream of azure magical power flew out, instantly shattering one Volcana. This technique was releasing concentrated magical power in gas form and detonating it. It had been so long since I'd released such a large amount of magical power. This made me feel incredibly refreshed. The Volcana continued attacking me. I didn't dodge at all. Their attacks landing on me had no effect whatsoever, since the world tree's safety was confirmed. The magical power in my body, I also wanted to confirm with my eyes. Suddenly my form flashed. 2 Volcana had their heads grabbed by me. The next second, both Volcana's heads exploded. I wasn't in a hurry to pick up the dropped magic crystals, because I remembered that eliminating these Volcana could yield eternal flame seeds, and the probability was quite high. I just didn't know how many would drop from their bodies. With this thought, I began a one-sided massacre. Before long, all the Volcana had been slain by me. I picked up a golden stone from the ground. This was the eternal flame seed. I never thought I'd obtain this again, though I really wanted to continue absorbing the world tree's magical power. But with my current body, absorbing the world tree's magic would be too much to handle. What I could do now was absorb the eternal flame seeds, transforming my magical power into fire attribute. As the flame seeds were absorbed by me, the magical power in my body also turned yellow. In the past, I would never have absorbed flame seeds. I never expected absorbing this would take 10 minutes. I swung my arms and moved around, looking at the ground. At the remaining eternal flame seeds, I might as well absorb as many as possible. Meanwhile, outside had descended into chaos. Every day, reporters were broadcasting news about the new rift. Fang Cheng, an S-rank hero, was already growing impatient with waiting, though people outside were saying Seo Dujun had entered to save his sister. Fang Cheng believed. Seo Dujun must have believed the rumors about awakening easily in rift zones, then selfishly barged in regardless of others' lives, making them wait here in misery for the monster wave to arrive. Although many countries had experienced new rifts this time, they had controlled them in the early stages. Only theirs remained unresolved. This made Fang Cheng angrier the more he thought about it, thinking if that bastard came out, he'd definitely smash his face. Time quickly reached 28 days. The Hero Association had issued a level 1 monster wave warning. Seo Dujun, who entered the rift, still hadn't escaped. Watching the news reports, the small fry knew that Seo Dujun was the one mentioned. Though he knew Seo Dujun had awakened, he believed this was completely different from surviving a rift, so he planned to take control of Seo Dujun's grandmother and sister. keep them well fed for now. If Seo Jun died, he'd sell his family's organs. Inside the rift space, I had lost track of how much time had passed. Hundreds of eternal flame seeds had been absorbed by me. No, I could freely use fire attribute magical power. My fire resistance had also improved dramatically. In terms of fire attributes, I was now even stronger than when I was called the Sword God. Looking at this towering tree, whether in the past or present, I was deeply grateful to the World Tree. Though we might never meet again, if we were to reunite and you face danger, I would give everything to protect you. Then I emerged from the rift space. I sensed around me, discovering no signs of life within a kilometer radius. They must have evacuated to prevent the monster wave. But there was a strong presence in one direction, so I decided to investigate. I found two tall men. Looking at their gear, I knew they were from the Hero Association. If they discovered me, it would definitely be troublesome. So I gathered fire attribute magical power and hurled it with tremendous force, targeting a distant rooftop. Instantly, the rooftop erupted in fiery explosions. This commotion immediately caught the attention of Fang Cheng and his companion. Both immediately ran over to investigate. Looking at the raging flames before them, they had no idea what was happening. How had it suddenly caught fire? I was quite satisfied with the precision of that flame attack. Then Fang Cheng and his companion sensed spatial disturbances. They immediately realized something was wrong with the rift. When they ran back again, they couldn't believe their eyes. The rift was slowly disappearing. I had already taken the opportunity to leave. The next day, the news reported this incident truthfully, though it was strange why no monster wave occurred. Everyone believed I had died inside. Today, I came to the Small Fries Loan Company again. Upon entering, I heard two thugs discussing my situation. That guy's dead. That old hag and little brat are finished too. That little girl, when she grows up a bit, I think she'll be promising. Pretty cute. The boss is definitely calculating how to get her to play with. My appearance interrupted their fantasies. Hey, where did your boss go? The small fry thought I was dead. Today, he was in an exceptionally good mood. Just as he entered the company, he heard strange noises. Suddenly a thug came flying out of the company. The scene shifted. The small fry was dragged inside by me. I coldly told him to crawl over here, like a dog. The small fry was terrified, breaking out in cold sweat. He could only follow my instructions. I didn't want to treat him as human at all, making him continue barking like a dog. Then I gave the small fry another beating. I had intended for Four Eyes nearby to become the new boss, but Four Eyes was too rigid, saying their boss had extensive connections. If he suddenly became boss, everyone would find it strange. Hoping I'd spare their boss. For this, I suggested stuffing him in a steel drum and throwing him in the sea. Isn't this kind of thing your specialty? If you don't want to do it, I can also throw him into a portal to feed the monsters. Hearing my words, everyone broke out in cold sweat. The small fry begged even more desperately. As long as I spared his life, he'd serve me like a dog for the rest of his life. I should have finished off the small fry here, to eliminate future troubles. I don't know why I'd become soft-hearted, so I extended my hand toward the small fry. The small fry thought I was forgiving him, gratefully reaching out his hand. Suddenly flames engulfed his hand. In just an instant, the small fry's hand was burned away. With that, I spared the small fry. But I still warned them, if my family gets hurt by even a hair, you'll all die. Use your entire lives, 24 hours a day, to protect them. The next day, I took my sister out for McDonald's. I planned to send her to kindergarten soon, but my sister told me the children there always mocked her for not having parents. I didn't argue with my sister. I decided to send her directly to school next year. During this, my sister said she didn't want her brother to be a hero because she heard heroes fight terrifying monsters. Sometimes they even die. She only hoped that she, grandmother, and her brother could live together for a long, long time. Hearing these words, I couldn't help but remember the cruel past. The last humans who survived in that world was what I lost during my long battles with the monsters. Unknowingly, the precious things I had once forgotten had appeared by my side again, and here, it seemed I could protect this small happiness and live on. Meanwhile, on the Hero Association's side, Chairman Ra Tae Wong was troubled by one matter, because they still hadn't determined the reason for the rift's sudden disappearance. This meant it could appear without warning again someday. He ordered his subordinates, even if it took time, to carefully re-investigate everything. This rift incident had also occurred in other countries simultaneously. Tae Wong felt something wasn't simple about this. Though other countries had already entered the control phase, the problem was a sudden message from abroad. Tae Wong's eyes widened. A spiritual rift wave had occurred overseas. He suddenly realized something. This man might be the world's strongest hero, because he had used just one punch to instantly defeat the infamous Caecilius. Getting to know this man began a few days ago. Today, I was preparing to dispose of the magic crystals in my possession, so I returned once again to the shop where I'd sold crystals twice before. The clerk, seeing my appearance, looked as if he'd seen a demon, fearfully and incoherently telling the nearby boss that I was the one forcibly selling crystals here. The boss wanted to confirm if it was really me. I had no intention of making excuses, throwing a backpack of crystals on the ground, telling him to process them immediately. Looking at the backpack on the ground, the boss thought it was another pile of unprocessed crystals, so he said he wouldn't trade with me. Moreover, a 1% processing fee would make him lose everything. The more he spoke, the more hostile his attitude became. Seeing this, I kicked the backpack with my foot. The crystals inside instantly spilled out. The clerk and boss's faces filled with shock, because among the magic crystals was one of those legendary, priceless hero magic crystals. Its function was to awaken ordinary people as heroes, or enhance magical power. That's why both of them were so stunned. Seeing this, the boss's attitude immediately changed, treating me as an honored guest with great hospitality. Now the advantage was mine, since they had just annoyed me greatly. I wanted the processing fee changed to 0.5%. The boss apologized profusely for this. Seeing his sincere attitude, I reluctantly changed it back to a 1% processing fee, but the boss still found it somewhat difficult to accept. Finally, I told him I had about 7 more items like this. Hearing this, the boss immediately transferred the money cheerfully, looking at my account balance. At this rate, even a 10 billion house wasn't out of reach. The problem was that to obtain high-grade crystals, portals alone weren't enough. If only I could freely enter and exit rift zones. Then my phone suddenly popped up with a message. It was news about a monster wave occurring overseas. I had no intention of getting involved. If I went there again, no matter what country it was, I would stop the rift zones. But I didn't want to live like that anymore. That evening, I took grandmother and sister out for barbecue. Grandmother looked at the menu in her hands, thinking the food here was too expensive. I told her not to worry. I had made a lot of money this time. My sister didn't think so much about it, picking up a piece of meat and putting it in her mouth. This feeling was simply too blissful. Seeing this, I called the waiter to bring several more servings, thinking we must eat to our heart's content today. But grandmother felt heartache over the expense. Then sister added a piece of tender meat for grandmother. The moment it entered her mouth, the feeling of happiness spread through grandmother's mouth. Just as our family was enjoying ourselves harmoniously, Hyeon Ju-yin appeared here. She came behind me, asking if she could chat with me for a while. I directly interrupted her, telling her to wait until I finished eating if she had business. Obviously my reaction surprised Hyeon Ju-yin, that a man would treat her this way. Such a great beauty, but she still sat nearby and waited quietly. Other customers in the restaurant occasionally cast curious glances, because this was an S-rank hero. The world superstar Hyeon Ju-yin ranked in the top 10 most beautiful heroes worldwide. Hyeon Ju-yin had a strange feeling. Why did just one look from me, one word make her feel nervous? Could someone who awakened less than 2 months ago be S-rank? Hyeon Ju-yin was more inclined to believe I possessed some kind of special ability. Just as Hyeon Ju-yin was thinking this, we also finished dinner. Suddenly a figure blocked our path. The person blocking us was Kong Chul-woo, though he didn't know how I had survived coming out of the portal. Seeing I wasn't dead, he had obviously come to cause trouble this time. I wasn't in a hurry to deal with Kong Chul-woo, but first told Hyeon Ju-yin, I'll listen to your purpose for coming. I'm entrusting my family to you. Just help me call a taxi for them to take. I'll be going ahead, because I still have a debt to collect. After grandmother and sister were sent away by Hyeon Ju-yin, I had no more words and directly attacked Kong Chul-woo, slapping him hard across the face. He was instantly enraged by me. Seeing this, a waiter came out to break up the fight, but he was like a mad dog biting randomly. However, I stopped him with my intervention. He became even angrier, asking if I was looking for death. I couldn't be bothered to speak, attacking again with a punch to his face, hitting him so hard he clutched his face in pain. Only then did I ask him, "You brought me into the portal and trapped me, left me there to die, didn't you? Don't we have a lot to talk about?" He said, "There's nothing to say to a bastard, abandoned by his own father." He also admitted it was my stepmother who sent him to kill me. I took out my phone and pressed record, telling him to say it again, but he didn't comply, instead using his ability to attack me. To this I simply raised my hand lightly, slowly opening my palm. The moment his fist touched my palm, his fist was deflected. Seeing this, his face filled with disbelief. Then, my palm released a stream of azure magical power. The next second he was sent flying. I immediately rushed forward, unleashing a frenzied assault on him. The nearby waiter was terrified, hurriedly dialing the police, but was stopped by Hyeon Ju-yin, who had returned. She told the waiter to let her handle it. Then she watched from the side as I beat Kong Chol-woo, her heart filled with curiosity about my strength, because Kong Chol-woo, a B-rank hero, was being beaten by me with no ability to fight back. Even a rank heroes couldn't do this. Seeing it was about enough. She called for me to stop, fearing Kong Chol-woo would be beaten to death. I looked down, thinking it was about enough, and spared Kong Chol-woo. Then, Hyeon Ju-yin asked how much I knew about Kong Chol-woo. Kong Chol-woo's cousin was the S-rank hero Kong Un-sok. I told her I knew, asking if there was a problem. My attitude of not caring about consequences made Hyeon Ju-yin think I was too reckless. She asked if I wasn't afraid of Kong Un-sok, but compared to this question, I found it more uncomfortable that Hyeon Ju-yin knew so much about my affairs. Seeing this, Hyeon Ju-yin apologized and revealed her true purpose. She wanted to buy all the hero magic crystals in my possession. I thought selling to her wouldn't be a problem, but I had one condition: take me into the rift zones at the same time. Hong Hee-ju received news that I was still alive and had retaliated against Kong Chol-woo. This made Hong Hee-ju feel somewhat troubled, because if this matter reached her husband's ears, it would be very troublesome, and if exposed by the media, the company's stock price would also fall. But her subordinate had already anticipated this. At the first opportunity, he had taken care of the police and media aspects, and even thought of a solution for her. Have Kong Un-sok handle it. Hong Hee-ju also thought this was a good plan, so she had her subordinate arrange a meeting time with Kong Un-sok. The next day arrived. Hyeon Ju-yin agreed to my condition, immediately gathering team members to take me into the rift zones. With Hyeon Ju-yin's authorization, we entered smoothly. As soon as we entered, movement appeared ahead. Everyone was cautiously on guard. A Tristan dove toward us. Hyeon Ju-yin immediately prepared for battle, but I didn't follow her commands. My form flashed as I charged alone toward the Tristan. Seeing my action, everyone worried for me, because they didn't know my strength. I used just one punch to bring the Tristan crashing down. Looking at the Tristan lying on the ground, everyone felt it was unbelievable, never expecting the Tristan to be killed by me in one hit. Then I lifted my foot, telling them it wasn't dead yet, saying this while delivering another kick to the Tristan's head, explaining that this was how it would die. Watching my actions, everyone was too shocked to speak. Young In-ju nearby asked Hyeon Ju-yin with a shocked expression, who exactly was this person? Hyeon Ju-yin told him he was just a very powerful human. Young In-ju couldn't understand what Hyeon Ju-yin was saying, because there were few heroes who could defeat a Tristan in one strike, especially in aerial combat. The Tristan couldn't even dodge the incoming fist, and was brought down with one punch. This was simply too exaggerated. Hyeon Ju-yin felt the same way, while becoming more and more curious about me. However, after seeing my strength, she felt we should be able to go to the core area. With this thought, she came to discuss this matter with me. I thought she was trying to take a share of my gains, so I decisively refused. She indicated she had no such intention, just felt my strength didn't match this place, asking if I had plans to go deeper inside. I found this quite interesting, so I agreed. Since Hyeon Ju-yin was more familiar with the routes here, she told me to follow her and not get lost. After saying this, she quickly rushed out. At extreme speed, I assumed a diving position. The next second my form disappeared from the spot, appearing several hundred meters away. Young In-ju and the others had no intention of following, because some of them couldn't keep up. only after we left. Young Inju looked at the Tristan's corpse, thinking, everyone says we B-rank heroes are impressive, but before S-rank heroes we're as insignificant as dust. What would Ju Yin amount to before that man? At this time, Hyeon Ju Yin was still sprinting at full speed. Then she looked back, and didn't see me behind her, wondering if she should slow down a bit. Suddenly my voice came from beside her ear, asking if she couldn't go any faster. My appearance obviously startled her, because in terms of speed, she was ranked second in all of H country. Suddenly I stopped, teasingly saying, I didn't expect her to be so slow. Just now she looked like she was trying to shake me off, and not let me catch up. Hyeon Ju Yin's little scheme was exposed by me. Her face flushed red with embarrassment. I had no intention of continuing to tease, but looked toward a mountain ahead, asking what was over there. Hyeon Ju Yin told me it was where the boss monster resided, a creature like a pterodactyl, a massive 20-meter monster, named Caecilius. She also warned me not to think of fighting it, because it would take at least 3 S-rank heroes. But when I heard it would drop legendary-grade magic crystals, I ignored Hyeon Ju Yin's warning, and quickly rushed over. Hyeon Ju Yin was completely stunned, not knowing what I was planning to do, but still chased after me to try to stop me. Unfortunately, her speed couldn't match mine. No matter what, she couldn't catch up to me. When she finally caught up, her face was filled with disbelief, because Caecilius's corpse lay before her. Her understanding of my strength was refreshed once again. She knew Caecilius's power was unquestionable, because there was once an S-rank hero named Park Hae-ryul, who became famous for hunting Caecilius. The first time he challenged Caecilius, he brought 30 B-rank heroes. All the B-rank heroes perished, only he barely escaped with his life. Later, he gathered one more S-rank hero, and 200 A-rank heroes for a revenge battle against Caecilius in an epic confrontation. Though they ultimately succeeded in hunting Caecilius, most of the participating heroes perished, causing his massive guild, Sweet Life, to suffer tremendous damage. 3 years had passed and it still hadn't recovered its strength. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, no one would believe that the infamous Caecilius could be brought down by one man with a single strike. Then, I finally dug out the legendary magic crystal. From now on, I wouldn't need anyone to guide me. Starting now, I wanted to walk my own path. The byproducts from Caecilius were worthless to me, so I gave them to Hyeon Ju Yin as travel fees. Hyeon Ju Yin glanced at them, feeling she didn't need them either. Not much time had passed. Everyone looked at the ground, at a full backpack. They couldn't imagine how I had managed to fill a backpack with crystals in such a short time, because this would require their entire guild to spend 20 hours. And it wasn't just about speed and quantity. They also heard from Hyeon Ju Yin that I had barely any equipment, wasn't even wearing combat gear, and alone defeated Caecilius like this. Just this alone made Young Inju believe I might be the world's strongest hero. Just as he was thinking this, they saw me return with another backpack full of magic crystals. Even if they told others about this, no one would believe it. They might even be taken for lunatics. So they had no intention of spreading this. Then they saw me and Hyeon Ju Yin talking, thinking we were dating, currently in an ambiguous stage, and feeling only a man of my caliber could stand beside Hyeon Ju Yin without being overshadowed. But calling it ambiguous seemed wrong, because they noticed I was quite rude to Hyeon Ju Yin. Then they saw me place the backpack in Hyeon Ju Yin's hands, and leave without even saying goodbye. Just as they were wondering about this, Hyeon Ju Yin explained to them that I didn't want others to know about defeating Caecilius and becoming famous overnight. I found that troublesome, so I had Hyeon Ju Yin handle the crystals for me. Young Inju found this incredible, that such a man existed in this world. Hyeon Ju Yin thought the same, and even blushed while thinking about it. Park Hae-ryul, who had once defeated Caecilius, trained at high intensity every day, just so that one day he could become the legendary hero who successfully conquered Caecilius with the fewest people. All these years, he had been proud of defeating Caecilius, believing no one else could do it, convinced that besides himself no one could accomplish this. Meanwhile, on the other side, Kong Eun-sok looked at my personal file. He had received Hong Hee-ju's commission to eliminate me, while also asking about his cousin Kong Chul-woo's condition. Learning that Kong Chul-woo was severely burned all over, blind in both eyes, barely clinging to life, he said, "That's pretty ruthless. but in his heart he thought if it were him, he would have chopped off Kong Chulwoo's limbs and severed his head. But when he heard Hyeon Juyin was present at the time, he immediately asked his subordinate why Hyeon Juyin would help that kid. But the subordinate only knew that Hyeon Juyin had provided testimony to the police, which calmed the situation. Upon hearing this news, Kong Eun-sok told his subordinate to immediately investigate my relationship with Hyeon Juyin. If we had no relationship, there must be some deal. He had to find out what that deal was. The subordinate was startled by Kong Eun-sok's reaction and immediately ran out to investigate. Kong Eun-sok, though he felt Hyeon Juyin's interference would be troublesome, thinking of Hong Hee-ju, that wealthy lady with talent, he gradually became excited. On the other side, after a busy day, I was on my way home, thinking that hunting in rift zones was indeed more efficient than portals. But I couldn't always rely on Hyeon Juyin for access. I'd have to think of another way. Just as I was about to rest in the house the small fry had arranged for me, going inside the house, I discovered several uninvited guests. My sister saw me appear and ran to hug me. Then one of them introduced himself. He said he was Prosecutor Park Chul-yong from the prosecutor's office, asking if I knew the small fry, and that he would arrest me on suspicion of participating in illegal, high-interest loan business represented by the small fry, the man who with just one punch instantly killed the infamous Caecilius, recognized as the world's strongest hero. But I chose to hide my identity because I thought being famous would be troublesome. But it was because of this decision that trouble found me instead. I was framed by H country's prosecutor for illegal high-interest lending. Not wanting to make things bigger, I cooperated and came to the prosecutor's office. He took out fabricated materials, various crimes pinned on me. I had no intention of answering his questions because I knew he was Hong Hee-ju's man. Seeing my silence, his attitude became increasingly hostile, nearly making me lose control and attack. As a result, I accidentally let a bit of my killing intent show, which terrified him to his core. Cold sweat immediately broke out on his forehead. He didn't know what that feeling was just now, but it made him lose all dignity. To regain face, he wanted to attack me. Suddenly, the door opened, interrupting his action. A subordinate entered with documents for him to review. When he saw the documents' contents, he suspected the machine was broken, because it showed I was just an ordinary person, not an awakened being. While I was still in the interrogation room, I had already made a decision to kill everyone here, then take grandmother and sister away from this place. Just as I was thinking this, Hyeon Juyin suddenly appeared. She seemed to see through my thoughts, telling me not to do anything foolish. She said she would help resolve this, and that the Hero Association had already sent investigators, asking me to be patient. It wouldn't be long. The next day I was released without charges, because Hyeon Juyin exposed prosecutor Park Chul-yong's corrupt behavior and illegal solicitation, getting him dismissed from office. On the way back, the radio was broadcasting that a new type of monster, shaped like a mantis, had appeared overseas. I knew this type of monster was called Maxion. Hearing this, Hyeon Juyin looked shocked because this new monster was currently only known by name within the association. Monster names weren't randomly assigned because within the energy condensed in magic crystals contains exclusive properties. Analysis can yield information about the monsters. Current Earth uses the power of science, while in my former world, we use the power of magic, which means when the same monsters appear in both worlds, most of the time I would know their names. Then I also told Hyeon Juyin Maxion's fatal weakness, that red ant secretions could be used. This toxin was harmless to humans, but had a strong paralyzing effect on Maxions. Hearing this, Hyeon Juyin was very curious about my identity, but I didn't want to tell her. Instead, I asked her back, what would happen if I killed Hong Hee-ju right now? At the same time, Hong Hee-ju had already received news of my acquittal, and that Hyeon Juyin had helped me. This made her feel the situation was becoming increasingly troublesome, so she had her subordinate contact Kong Eun-sok. The price was 300 million for Kong Eun-sok to act immediately. But Kong Eun-sok, receiving the message, wasn't satisfied. with her asking price, 1.6 billion, exactly double the price. Even his subordinates thought it was excessive, but in Kang Un-sok's view, it was just right, because Hyeon Ju-yeon was also involved in this matter. If the opponent was S rank, this price wasn't too much. After this explanation, his subordinate also felt Hyeon Ju-yeon was indeed a dangerous opponent, but this response met with Kang Un-sok's displeasure, because not all S ranks were the same. He believed someone like Hyeon Ju-yeon could be dealt with in just 20 minutes. The subordinate didn't dare argue. Finally, he asked about the association's situation again, learning that the association had already publicly announced the list of heroes being dispatched to provide overseas support, which included him. The flight was in 3 days. 3 days later, though foreign heroes were already defending with all their might, trying to stop the monsters' advance, they were helpless against enemies with no intelligence. Now with the collapse of the final defense line, the monsters were less than 60 kilometers from the foreign capital. Just at this moment, helicopters flew across the sky, suddenly dropping strange liquid. The monsters that came into contact with this liquid all became immobilized. Seeing this scene, everyone on the aircraft was shocked, never expecting red ant secretions to actually work on Maxions. Using this discovery, they easily resolved the foreign crisis. Hyeon Ju-yeon's fame also soared because of this. The aircraft was immediately surrounded by reporters, because in their eyes, it was Hyeon Ju-yeon who discovered Maxion's weakness, thus saving the foreign country from despair. This was what it meant to be a true hero. To thank me for my help, Hyeon Ju-yeon bought me many gifts. The second day after returning home, though she was still curious about how I knew Maxion's weakness, I still had no intention of telling her. Then she tentatively asked me what my plans were going forward. Actually, she was afraid I was targeting Red Spider or Kang Un-sok. That would make things much bigger. But my answer surprised her greatly. I just wanted to buy a house first. After returning home, Kang Un-sok continued enjoying himself. But one thing puzzled him greatly. He felt that Hyeon Ju-yeon was somewhat different from before. Knowing Maxion's weakness was one thing, but she kept hiding how she knew it. And during the return journey, he had tested Hyeon Ju-yeon, mentioning that Kang Chul-woo was his cousin. He had sufficient reason to avenge Kang Chul-woo, but Hyeon Ju-yeon seemed unconcerned, and stated she wouldn't interfere. This made him feel I definitely hid some secret. The scene shifted to overseas. To prepare for the second monster wave, the Foreign Hero Association dispatched numerous heroes into the rifts to collect magic crystals. At the entrance, 2 heroes had been standing guard for 5 hours. Just then, the rift suddenly experienced a disturbance. A scarred man appeared. Seeing this, the 2 heroes knew this person wasn't a member of the attack team. They immediately tried to contact headquarters, but the scarred man simply raised his hand. Green circles appeared around both heroes. No matter how they tried, they couldn't shake them off. One of them drew a knife, attempting to attack the scarred man. As the knife was hurled with force, it bounced off the scarred man's body. The scarred man said, "Too weak," clenching his fist. Both heroes were crushed until they coughed blood. Then the scarred man raised his hand again, his fingertips crackling with energy. The next second, space tore open, revealing a device, displaying 19.26%. Seeing this, he muttered to himself, by this world's time, 10 years have passed, and it hasn't even recovered 20%. Was it a failure? The dimensional rifts I worked so hard to trigger need to raise the magic concentration first. Saying this, he looked at the heroes lying on the ground, not quite dead, then grinned. Before that, let me clean up these insects, weaker than bugs. The scene shifted. This time I came to the rift zones alone, because I had confessed my awakened identity to the Hero Association, and confirmed my overwhelming strength. With Hyeon Ju-yeon's guarantee, I was able to quickly obtain an S-rank hero registration certificate, becoming H country's 8th S-rank hero. Therefore, the Hero Association wanted to publicize my identity and conduct large-scale promotion, but this required my personal consent. So, Chairman Ra Tae Wong decided to meet me personally. Right now I was efficiently hunting magic beasts, though my control over magic power was very precise, completely eliminating all beasts in the rift zones. Still consumed considerable magic power. I needed to prepare a weapon. So, on Hyeon Ju-yeon's recommendation, I came to a weapons shop, having them use materials I prepared to forge a weapon for me. But that kid said the appointments were full, told me to check out other shops. But, I wasn't having any of that. Grabbing the kid by the collar, I told him to call his dad immediately. When his father came out, I told him Hyeon Ju-yin had referred me. The statement clearly surprised Choi Chul-gwon. I didn't bother with pleasantries, directly taking out the materials I'd brought, demanding he make me a proper sword, as long as possible in length. But he told me, if this type of metal material was forcibly made longer, the strength would weaken. He suggested I make 2 swords of appropriate size. What I needed was something long, with high magic absorption performance. I felt if he couldn't even do this, then he was incompetent. My tone immediately drew his son's displeasure. His son told me the weapons he made could achieve magic absorption performance of grade 3 or higher. I casually picked up a weapon, gripped it with both hands and began releasing magic power, but it didn't last long. The weapon couldn't absorb my magic power and burst apart. I told them if they could only make such garbage, they should just give up, but in the end, they accepted the challenge. In the days that followed, for the weapon's strength, I began hunting Cyclops, obtaining Cyclops blood. I brought the blood to the weapon shop, telling them this could increase weapon strength. At this point, the materials were basically complete, but to enhance magic absorption performance, one more thing was needed, something that could only be found in Redwood Country. Coincidentally enough, the association was dispatching heroes to Redwood. Hyeon Ju-yin and the others were planning to go, because the association's compensation was high, so they wanted to invite me along. A few days later, Hyeon Ju-yin gave me a car, and brought up this matter. I happened to have the same plan, so I decided to go with them. On the other side, Kong Un-sok received news that I was S-rank, so he demanded an increase in the commission fee. Hong Hee-ju originally disagreed, but hearing I was S-rank, she could no longer sit still, because this way she couldn't suppress me. No matter how much money it cost, she had to eliminate me. Then Kong Un-sok received a phone call, learning of my plans to go to Redwood Country. He decided to kill me in Redwood Country. Soon came the day to depart for Redwood Country. On Redwood Country's Hero Association side, though they were happy that H-Country heroes could come, they worried about one thing, fearing H-Country heroes would discover intelligence, that Redwood Country's national treasure-level hero had been defeated and killed by an unknown entity. According to footage from black boxes, what killed him was a human silhouette. To this day, they still weren't clear what exactly happened in the rift zones near Santa Ren. After arriving here, all the H-Country people were reading briefings. Seeing I wasn't there, Hyeon Ju-yin sent me a message. I told her I had transferred. My destination was Santa Ren, quite far from here. She hadn't expected I'd go alone to the most troublesome rift zone, but she didn't hesitate for a moment, immediately preparing to come find me, but was discovered by Kong Un-sok, who asked her where she was going, since the mission hadn't started yet. Hyeon Ju-yin didn't hide it, and told him the destination. This puzzled Kong Un-sok greatly. He couldn't understand why I would go to a place even Redwood Country said not to visit. Soon I met up with Hyeon Ju-yin and the others. In Santa Ren's rift zones, Hyeon Ju-yin complained about why I came here, without telling her in advance, and asked what my purpose was. I told her my target was Blue Gator, but she felt my tone toward her was very disrespectful, so we kept bickering throughout the journey. However, in our team, there were some newcomers who didn't know me. Seeing me taking the lead, they somewhat doubted my abilities. Just then our team was attacked. Seeing this, everyone entered combat mode, looking at monsters even more monstrous than in photos. Some were already thinking of retreating. Then I shouted loudly, "Get out of the way," drawing the long sword from my waist. This sword was Choi Chul-gwon's treasured piece, because Blue Gator's heart was hard to extract by hand, so he lent it to me. With a weapon, my power became even greater. In just one encounter, this monster was sliced apart like paper by my sword. Those newcomers were shocked seeing my strength, because to them, I was ridiculously overpowered. Time quickly came to evening. We planned to rest here for the night. People in the team were still discussing my strength, finally reaching a conclusion that I wasn't an ordinary hero. Then Hyeon Ju-yin walked over, asking if I'd finished processing Blue Gator's heart. I pointed behind me, as she could see. Hyeon Ju-yin actually didn't know what I planned to use it for. Suddenly she saw me grilling meat. but it didn't look like beef. When I told her this was blue gator meat, she felt nauseous, watching me eat with such relish. Even Young In-ju nearby was stunned. Hyeon Ju-yin was also curious, and wanted to try some. Young In-ju watched in shock, as the grilled meat entered her mouth. This amazed Hyeon Ju-yin. The taste was unexpectedly delicious. Then Young In-ju came closer to me, asking what my secret was for winning over Hyeon Ju-yin. Because Hyeon Ju-yin was romantically inexperienced, not the type to easily fall for men. No, she was even willing to eat such meat with me. Speaking of love reminded me of my first love. I wasn't even 20 years old then. My second relationship was when I was in my 20s. The last one was named Veronica. She was once my final refuge. Young In-ju saw me spacing out and called loudly. Snapping back to reality, I told him something. This statement immediately silenced him, because this was the worst line he'd ever heard in his life. Meanwhile, Kang Un-sok had somehow been monitoring our every move. Suddenly Hong Hee-ju called telling him to act quickly, because my grandfather saw that I was S-rank in the news, saying he wanted to take me home. That's why Hong Hee-ju was so urgent. Finally Kang Un-sok gave her a guarantee that I would never return from Redwood Country, because Kang Un-sok had already decided where to make his move on me. The next day, we continued deeper into the rift zones. Looking at the map, Hyeon Ju-yin discovered dangerous monsters ahead, called lynx. Seeing I also knew of lynx's existence, Hyeon Ju-yin didn't stop me, but she told me to put on earplugs, because this would prevent being deceived by lynx's cries, but I felt I didn't need them. No matter what Hyeon Ju-yin said, it was useless. We walked until evening. That night we finally encountered lynx. Everyone immediately covered their ears, but I made no such movement. I simply raised my head, looking at lynx standing on the tree trunk. It was a canine monster that fused wolf and fox characteristics. This was Lynx. Lynx stood upright on one leg. His blood-red eyes began to stare into Hyeon Ju-yin's eyes, just as Hyeon Ju-yin seemed about to be sucked into. Lynx's blood-red eyes, a palm too soft for a man, covered Hyeon Ju-yin's eyes. Be careful. Do-jun clicked his tongue, covering Hyeon Ju-yin's eyes. For the first time, he drew the sword from his back. Swoosh. The sword gifted by Choi Chulgwon slid from its sheath like gliding. Though not on the list, those eyes of yours are quite useful in many ways. Do-jun stared at Lynx's blood-red eyes, his face filled with greed. In the BA-019 Rift Zone, Daniel, Chairman Lopez ran his hands over his face and sighed. Since it's the Rift Zone near Santa Ren, that's unavoidable. The place Brazil's Hero Association most dreaded was the Rift Zone near Santa Ren. Hyeon Ju-yin's group had gone to such a place. Chairman Daniel Lopez believed this was inevitable. He just hadn't been able to give them classified intelligence, and they had gone to the Rift Zone on their own. This made him feel regretful. That's where Wildcat is, right? Yes, that thing isn't easily detected, so I hope they don't run into him. What would happen if Korean heroes encountered Wildcat? The assistant's question made Daniel, Chairman Lopez, glare at him, as if saying, do you really need to ask? Even our association-approved guilds have a 90% mortality rate. Do you think Korean heroes would be exceptions? Maybe they, Daniel. Chairman Lopez struggled to swallow the words, "will all die." Those words. But there are 2 S-rank heroes among the Korean heroes. The assistant emphasized there were 2 S-rank heroes. But what happened when Narachio first encountered Wildcat? Do you remember? Chairman Daniel Lopez mentioned Brazil's S-rank hero Narachio. Musco. The assistant just opened his mouth. If not for our country's top 3 production guilds making enormous sacrifices, Brazil would have completely lost an S-rank hero. The government and media only announced publicly that it was an unexpected monster attack, causing heavy hero casualties. But the truth wasn't like that. It was a tragedy, caused by an S-rank hero's rampage, under mental control by the monster Wildcat. This truth is classified as top secret, even within Brazil's Hero Association, and the person involved, Narachio Musco, still cannot perform normal hero activities. Due to that trauma, the S-rank heroes from Korea this time are just Asia's poster girl, and a rookie who just reached S-rank status. Don't expect those 2 to come out unscathed. Rather than hoping for such impossibilities, better to pray they're lucky enough not to encounter Wildcat at all. Chairman Daniel Lopez crossed his hands, praying that the Korean heroes wouldn't encounter the terrifying monster, whose appearance and nature were completely different. Wildcat really does look. Violet Guild members unanimously thought he was adorable. Among publicly known monsters, there were quite a few beautiful and cute ones, and Wildcat was cute enough to rank among the top. His entire body covered in thick blue-green fur, radiating a unique and special charm, sometimes like a fox, sometimes like a wolf's face, just the right size for taking walks together. Except for his blood-red eyes, his appearance really made it hard to believe he was a monster. While Violet Guild members admired Wildcat's appearance, Dujun infused magic power into his sword. Each time red magic power entered the sword, Choi Chulguan's gifted sword would glow hot. This is the first time here. Using my family's swordsmanship, Dujun's eyes precisely focused on Lynx. Buzz buzz buzz, slight vibrations came from his fingertips, with the humming sound that followed. That's the limit. Dujun knew if he continued injecting magic power, the sword would shatter, so he stopped the magic infusion. Like a sword just pulled from a furnace, glowing red-hot, it began slowly cutting through the air. Bandera's family swordsmanship first form. Miracle Foundation, Milagro Rack. Point Creation Miracle. Wherever the sword passed, crimson points formed. It was such an intense light that just looking at it seemed to burn one's eyes. The points varied in size, some small as rice grains, others occasionally huge as watermelons. What is that? What did he just do? How can such things appear wherever the sword passes? Violet Guild members also watched in amazement at the points Dujun created. Even more surprising, all the points remained suspended there, as if time and space had frozen. The monsters also stared mesmerized at the red points Dujun created. Dujun's sword stopped only after creating thousands of points. The moment he swung the sword, points were created. When the sword filled with crimson light returned to normal, the instant it was sheathed again, the points suspended in air began moving simultaneously, rushing toward hundreds of monsters. One monster opened its massive mouth, seemingly unconcerned, wanting to devour the red point flying toward it. This was because it felt no lethality or sense of threat, so it could make such a move. Pop! The monster carelessly swallowed the red point. What is this? Just as it thought this, bang! The monster's head immediately exploded like a bomb, before anyone could even voice their shock. At the monster's exploding head, an even more shocking scene unfolded. Bang 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 bang. The crimson points began rushing into the monster horde. Their bodies were mercilessly torn to pieces. The points varied in size, and their power differed accordingly. Points small as rice grains displayed basketball-sized explosive force, while points large as watermelons possessed enough explosive power to completely blow away a blue gator's rear legs and tail spanning 30 meters, shocking everyone. Where the blizzard-like devastation swept through, only destroyed monster corpses remained. Hundreds of monsters turned to chunks of meat before their eyes. In less than a minute, facing such overwhelming devastation for the first time, Violet Guild members stood frozen in place. Some tried to say something, but as if they'd lost the ability to speak, they just stood with mouths agape. In this scene of shock and terror, the only person completely composed was Dujun. Crunch crunch crunch. Dujun walked calmly among the horrifyingly gruesome monster corpses, trembling trembling trembling. The sole surviving monster in the place swept by the bloody storm, Lynx, who hadn't lost even a single hair, watched Dujun approaching, with eyes full of terror. Even in fear and horror, Lynx attempted one last struggle. His blood-red eyes stared intently at Dujun. If only I could dominate that monster-like human's mind, if I could control that being, who instantly slaughtered hundreds of monsters protecting me, I could live here like an emperor. Lynx's blood-red eyes filled with tenacious will and sweet desire. But how laughable. Dujun drove his dagger into the head of Lynx, who was trying to dominate his mind. Lynx was one monster that absolutely couldn't be spared. In the world of destruction, many companions had their minds dominated by Lynx, devastating those who trusted and depended on them. So Lynx was more dangerous than those boss monsters, who flaunted their raw power, and the post-battle fatigue was greater. Dujun immediately dug out Lynx's blood-red eyes. Do you know, Lynx's mind control isn't from brainwaves, but from the unique light emitted by his eyes. What does that mean? It means, as long as you have Lynx's eyes, you can control minds. Of course, you can't take a living Lynx with you, so ultimately, you have to extract the eyes from a dead Lynx. No, maybe it's not like that. If my guess is correct, the limitation on dead Lynx's eyes isn't time, but the number of uses. Dujun remembered the great scholar Rentner, smiling innocently while holding Lynx's head, carefully examining the pair of blood-red eyes in his hands. Normally, the moment life's light extinguishes, the glow in the eyes should also fade, but Lynx's blood-red eyes still emit intense red light. The method of use was also discovered by Rentner. Simply inject magic power into the eyes, then make eye contact with the target you want to dominate. It's very simple, but to accomplish this, the conditions are harsher than imagined. The condition is not being dominated by Lynx's mind, and having excellent enough magic control ability to use Lynx's eyes. Why did you dig them out? Hyeon Juyin looked with disgust at the lynx eyes in Dujun's hands. They'll be useful, obviously. On Earth, the only hero who could use Lynx's eyes was Dujun. After hunting Lynx, the atmosphere among Violet Guild members changed. How should I put it? It's like the threat and tension after dealing with boss monsters just disappeared. Though Lynx wasn't a boss monster, he controlled hundreds of monsters. So, looking at the overall combat power of the Rift Zone, the effect was greater than dealing with boss monsters. At least until monsters regenerate, this Rift Zone will become peaceful. That's obvious. That said, the Rift Zone isn't completely without monsters. Grown, reeking of foul stench, a swamp gargoyle appeared before Dujun, blocking his path. That guy completely doesn't read the room. If it wants to die, what can it do? Among monsters, undead really are the stupidest. Other monsters would never think to charge forward alone like this, but these guys don't even have thoughts. That's what makes them more annoying. They completely don't understand the situation. Even if countless companions die nearby, they'll still charge forward. Violet Guild members chatted back and forth. Dujun threw one punch, and the swamp gargoyle's head exploded. Its brief appearance ended there. After the Lynx incident, the distance between Dujun and Violet Guild members grew even wider, because they had never seen nor heard of Dujun's martial prowess. So, they couldn't view him as an ordinary hero at all, an immeasurable monster or a god. This was how Violet Guild members felt every time they looked at Dujun. Thanks to this, they believed this Brazil Rift closure operation would be the most relaxed since they became heroes, at least as long as they didn't anger Dujun or make him dislike them. Where did you learn that swordsmanship? Was that really swordsmanship? Hyeon Juyin had been silent for a long time, constantly thinking about something. When she asked this question, Dujun unconsciously, as if by habit, asked back, why? Want to learn? Can I learn it too? Seeing Hyeon Juyin's expectant expression, Dujun regretted saying those words. If you start learning now, when would you be able to use it? And besides, Dujun frowned. He swallowed back the words about not needing to learn this in such a peaceful place. Even in the world of destruction, Dujun had generously taught his knowledge to those with talent and ability. Though it was family swordsmanship, the family had already perished. The world was heading toward destruction, so there was no reason to be stingy. At that time he only thought of training as many powerful companions as possible to save the world. But even the most basic swordsmanship couldn't be mastered overnight, and the situation then couldn't even guarantee tomorrow. So it was meaningless action. Moreover, after painstakingly teaching swordsmanship, he was still betrayed. In this kind of world, what I possess would become poison instead, because Earth was so peaceful. Dujun believed his swordsmanship, and many things he'd learned, would be poison to the people here. And he was also clearly aware this would bring him pain. So he thought under normal circumstances, he shouldn't display his power. You'd use it at least once before dying, right? After Hyeon Juyin spoke, she turned her head away sharply. Hyeon Juyin interpreted Dujun's words as, your talent isn't good enough. In other words, know your place. Seeing Hyeon Juyin sulking, Dujun sighed and clicked his tongue. He wanted to explain, but felt that would be too demeaning. So he hoped time would naturally calm things down. After wandering the Rift Zone for about 4 hours, they finally discovered the Rift's core, and found an exit not far nearby. If other places are similar to here, we'll waste some time finding routes. Their details are far inferior to ours. Young In-ju looked at the Rift Zone map provided by Brazil's association, and shook his head. Of course, when they next entered here to close the rift, they'd be able to take a more certain path, because Young In-ju had carefully corrected the errors on the map. But other rift zones were the real problem, because if details were insufficient like here, it seemed they'd waste considerable time. But he wasn't worried, because Dujun was there. What's there to worry about? We have the world's most capable bus driver. Hyeon Ju-yeon said this, and was first to walk out the exit. What's wrong with Hyeon Ju-yeon? Did something happen? Young In-ju asked. Do-jun shrugged his shoulders, as if saying, how would he know, then walked toward the exit. What? Are they already fighting? Young In-ju chuckled. After taking care of all guild members, he was the last to exit. Young In-ju, stepping outside, saw the scene before him. His eyes widened in shock. You arrogant bastard, are you tired of living? What shocked him wasn't the man shouting at Do-jun, who stood defiantly, but the true identity of the cold-faced man standing behind him. Ryoma Takashi, a Japanese hero, and an S-rank hero at that. Ryoma Takashi was his true identity. What the hell is happening? Faced with this unusual situation, Young In-ju couldn't help frowning. After Do-jun's group departed for Brazil, they left by plane. Kang Un-sok looked puzzled, as he spoke to his right-hand man Kwak Young-chul. Why did they leave so early? Does it have something to do with the chairman? I don't know the reason, but I can confirm. Chairman Ra Tae-wong is also confused by this unexpected move. Are you sure? Positive. Kwak Young-chul's confident answer dispelled Kang Un-sok's suspicions about the association. Really don't understand. It's still way before the scheduled time. What benefit could make them so eager to leave? Speaking of which, did you find out clearly about what I asked you to investigate? Coincidentally, just received a report. Here, Kang Un-sok browsed through the materials Kwak Young-chul handed over. Santa Ren, a region even Brazil's association finds extremely troublesome. Hyeon Ju-yeon has already claimed this place. Confirmed. This time Kwak Young-chul's answer was also full of certainty. This is really. Kang Un-sok placed the materials on the table like throwing them. Smiling bitterly, everything related to that Seo Do-jun guy is unpredictable. Young-chul, you think so too, right? It does always exceed expectations. Yeah, that's right. Anything connected to this guy is so strange I don't know the intent or the reason. I've lived this long, and it's my first time meeting someone like this. Doesn't feel good, so why not just let go now? Honestly, I'd like to. In my life, anything that feels bad, I've never seen have good results. Kang Un-sok nodded, but said the opposite. My mood isn't great either, but what can I do? Finally found a decent partner. If I quit just because it feels bad, wouldn't that be too embarrassing? Don't you think? Even with Kang Un-sok saying this, Kwak Young-chul's expression didn't relax at all. Besides, it's not like I'm getting blood on my own hands. What's the problem? Perfect timing. I was already worried about attracting attention. Now they've hidden themselves in a remote place. Makes the job convenient. Contact Takashi. Understood. Despite his reluctance, Kwak Young-chul could only comply. Making trouble for no reason is really annoying. The man in his early 40s frowned, obviously dissatisfied with the accelerated schedule. His brow couldn't relax. Just getting to Brazil was already no simple flight. Once in Brazilian territory, several more hours of flying, then driving day and night. How could he not be irritated? That's what I say. But for handling business, this couldn't be better. Master, entering the same rift zone anyway. It's all the same. No one can see. No one can hear. If not for my friend's earnest request, I wouldn't have specially made this trip either. The man looked around the desolate environment and clicked his tongue. If the blessing that descended here could be granted to us, we'd have become the world's strongest long ago. So you see, treasures must meet their true master. Master speaks truly. If such a fine rift zone appeared in our country, Master, you'd have trampled the world underfoot long ago. The man's tongue-like flattery flowed smoothly. His expression relaxed slightly. Before long, they reached their target location. Master, do you really plan to enter like this? They've only been inside for 3 days. Even for advance reconnaissance, they couldn't have reached halfway into the rift zone. We rushed here without rest, just to take this opportunity to eliminate them. There's no reason to delay further. Understood. As soon as the man finished speaking, the man who had been flattering him stopped arguing and began leading those traveling with them. Who's coming out? Just as everything was ready, and they were about to enter the rift zone, someone emerged from within the rift zone. Stay alert, ready for orders. With the man's command, dozens of people spread left and right like a single unit, taking positions ready to handle any situation. Then, a person walked out of the rift zone. Hyeon Ju-yeon. It was indeed Hyeon Ju-yeon, a celebrity known throughout the entire world. Hyeon Ju-yeon was equally startled. She had expected the area outside the rift zone to be empty, but saw a group of people arranged like an encirclement in defensive formation, so she instantly showed a surprised expression. But her surprise lasted only a moment. Hyeon, Ju-yeon immediately recognized their identity because in the entire world, only one country would proudly use a red circle on white background, with red lines extending in all directions, as their symbol. What are those guys doing here? Hyeon Ju-yeon's expression twisted subtly, though it wasn't particularly glorious. She was genuinely a descendant of independence activists. Though she couldn't be called a patriot, she at least had basic awareness. So regarding Japan's shameless economic retaliation measures, Hyeon Ju-yeon had actively participated in the No Japan movement that swept like a storm back then, and it had to be among Japanese heroes. The most disgusting type. Not all Japanese are bad, but some among them are the most ignorant and ill-mannered. No matter what you say, there's no communicating with them. The Imperial Guild that worshipped Japanese militarism, even calling them vile, wouldn't be excessive. The Imperial Guild, that was them, and their leader, more beautiful than when I saw him in London. The man examining Hyeon Ju-yeon up and down, with snake-like chilling eyes, was Imperial Guild Master Ryoma Takashi. Never dreamed I'd meet you in such a place. To put it simply, when Hyeon Ju-yeon asked back why they were here, Ryoma Takashi showed a nauseating smile. I heard there were heroes acting earlier than us. I thought perhaps I could help, so I came over. What a coincidence, since it's you. Hyeon Ju-yeon saw Ryoma Takashi lying shamelessly, without even moistening his lips. She frowned, but her mind was racing. That beast in human form couldn't possibly have come without knowing. He definitely came because he knew we were here. Instantly, in Hyeon Ju-yeon's mind, appeared the image of Kong Eun-sok chatting pleasantly in London. Could it be, thinking it wasn't someone else, but Kong Eun-sok's face? An ominous feeling crept into her heart. Why so serious? Then Do-jun walked to Hyeon Ju-yeon's side and asked, "Who's being serious? Who are they?" Do-jun's sharp gaze began scanning the Imperial Guild members. Just from their clothing and appearance, Do-jun knew they were a disreputable Japanese hero guild, but couldn't quite remember their name. "Who are you?" Do-jun made eye contact with Ryoma Takashi, who was glaring at him. "This is too much. Showing hostility toward someone you've just met isn't easy. This can only happen when there's a clear reason." Yet toward Do-jun, who had said nothing and done nothing, he brazenly displayed hostility. "What are you doing?" Hyeon Ju-yeon was startled by Do-jun suddenly putting his arm around her shoulder, but she didn't shake off his hand. No need to make him uncomfortable. Besides, Do-jun's action didn't displease her. On the other hand, Do-jun clearly saw, the moment his hand rested on Hyeon Ju-yeon's shoulder, the boiling killing intent in Ryoma Takashi's eyes. Fruit of the alley. Even for a hero with outstanding abilities, Ryoma Takashi's appearance was utterly terrible. Simply couldn't be described as good-looking. Short in stature, face covered with wrinkles. Couldn't tell he was in his 40s. Eyes like a snake, nose an ugly bulbous shape with a red glow, lips thin and sharp, giving off an aura of meanness and cunning. His appearance itself was bad. Worse still was the aura he emanated. This Ryoma Takashi had actually fallen for Hyeon Ju-yeon. Do-jun would bet money it definitely wasn't noble or deep love, just perverted possessiveness, casually putting hands on women based on looks alone. What kind of bad habit is this? Seo Do-jun had once had the chance to become heir to Korea's second-largest conglomerate. Being an illegitimate child, he received harsh education in childhood, so English was basic. He could even converse fluently in Chinese and Japanese, and Do-jun had inherited all of Seo Do-jun's memories, therefore could completely understand Ryoma Takashi's words. Regarding Ryoma Takashi's words, Do-jun let out a disdainful snort. Seeing Do-jun's arrogant behavior, his expression instantly turned ice cold. Seeing that scene, Shunchi burned with rage on Ryoma Takashi's behalf. "How dare you be so rude to master? Bow your head and apologize immediately." "Apologize?" Do-jun scoffed. Shunchi stepped forward. "You brat, whoever you are. This lord is from Great Japan. I don't seem to have any reason to know that." Do-jun interrupted Shunchi's words, as if deliberately showing Ryoma Takashi he crossed his arms and ignored him. Meanwhile, Violet Guild members appeared one by one. Finally, Young In-ju also safely emerged from the rift zone, though it was a subtle standoff situation. No one felt nervous. Speaking of the Imperial Guild, within Japan, they prided themselves on ranking in the top 5 in combat power. Conversely, the Violet Guild could only rank 30th domestically in Korea. So the Imperial Guild looked down on the Violet Guild. But the Violet Guild, if this were normal circumstances, would be highly alert to their opponents. But because they had Dujun, an immeasurable monster, in front, they could handle things with composure. What should have been a tense situation wasn't tense at all. Shunchi's anger reached its peak. Damn brat, you must be crazy, wanting to die. Shunchi's crude shouting made Violet Guild members, whether they understood Japanese or not, all think the same thing, that Japanese monkey had gone mad. He had to be stopped. If this continued, a conflict would definitely break out between Dujun and the Imperial Guild. Even with Ryoma Takashi, Young Inju hurriedly stepped forward. Both of you please calm down. After Young Inju intervened, Shunchi glared at him. There's no place for a sissy like you to butt in. Sissy, Shunchi's words crossed the line and Young Inju's forehead also bulged with veins. But Young Inju wasn't so emotional as to lose control from momentary anger, leading to irreversible regret. I'm Young Inju of the Violet Guild. He believed if he formally introduced himself, the other party's attitude would certainly change. It had to be so. The problem was he didn't know. The opponent was an incommunicable species. Violet has that kind of guild too. Right. That's where even people without self-awareness, sissies, hang out, so there's no need to know about it. The guild master being insulted to his face, Violet Guild members could no longer remain silent. Members who didn't understand Japanese, after explanations from other members, became even more furious and began cursing in Korean. What the hell are you babbling about, you monkey bastard? Hey monkey, come here, I'll knock all your teeth out. Talk about lacking self-awareness. Aren't you monkey bastards #1 in the world at that? Claiming other people's land as your own, doing all kinds of evil, then denying it outright. I always said not to associate with island monkeys. Unlucky bastards. Patui. Violet Guild members spoke one after another, beginning to curse with murderous intent. Imperial Guild members naturally turned red-faced and began counter-attacking. From personal attacks to historical issues, both sides' accusations grew louder and louder. Dujun, who had been standing defiantly, moved. Dujun, Hyeon Juyin quickly grabbed his arm. What, scared? Hyeon Juyin shook her head, responding to Dujun's question. That's not what I mean. Just don't kill anyone. Though she said nothing, Hyeon Juyin also couldn't tolerate that Young Inju, who followed like an older brother, had received intolerable insults. Even the Violet Guild, which could be called her life, had been looked down upon together. Watch his performance, Dujun said, walking toward Shunchi. What the hell, Shun? Kai knew nothing about Dujun, so toward Dujun approaching him, he had no vigilance whatsoever. He was even looking down on him, his mind full of thoughts about how to bully him, like legitimate self-defense. Monkey, what? From now on, I'm going to beat you up, whether you dodge or block. Use all your skills, no matter what beast you are. I'm going to kill you. Shunchi threw the first punch. Shunchi's fist struck Dujun's face directly. Shunchi's fist hit Dujun's face precisely. The Violet Guild members, who understood his strength better than anyone, all fell silent as if doused with cold water. On the other hand, Shunchi's expression relaxed considerably, speaking sarcastically, because he felt Dujun had been putting on airs earlier, but was actually nothing. Koreans just know how to run their mouths anyway. Dujun straightened his head, responding to the sarcastic Shunchi. According to the rules here, I took the hit first, so now it's legitimate self-defense, right? Dujun asked, his eyes flashing viciously. According to the rules here, I took the hit first, so now it's legitimate self-defense, right? As soon as Dujun finished speaking, Shunchi felt his entire body freeze as if paralyzed. Why, isn't he a Korean who couldn't even dodge my punch? Shunchi thought. This was something that couldn't happen by common sense. What stupid thing is this? He's beneath me. I was actually scared by that kind of bluffing. Shunchi couldn't understand himself. His eyes wide, to relax his stiff body, Shunchi forced out his fist. I just need to smash that guy's nose. That kind of guy absolutely can't dodge, can't block my attack either. Suppress his ridiculous bluffing with force. Once his nose is smashed and face bloody, he'll understand reality. He'll definitely forget what he said and desperately try to hide. To save his life, Shunchi quietly shifted his gaze toward Dujun's back. Hyeon Juyin, obviously. This guy is just arrogant because of the S-rank hero. Hyeon Juyin is indeed a remarkable hero, but behind him is an even stronger power, a more remarkable hero, Ryoma Takashi. Even if I beat Dujun down here, there won't be any problems. Shunchi's fist was full of power, full of conviction. This was a punch, capable of smashing an ordinary person's face, even if they were the same rank of hero. If the level was C rank or below, their life would be in danger. Shunchi's punch, completely different from before, made Imperial Guild members all show cruel smiles on their faces, due to their hatred toward Korea being higher than any other Japanese. Just imagining Shunchi's punch beating Dujun into a bloody mess and collapse made them feel very happy. However, reality wasn't as easy as they imagined, nor as sweet. Crack, with a short, powerful striking sound. One body collapsed on the spot. One person stood proudly, another knelt before him with head hanging. Imperial Guild members couldn't believe their eyes, because these two presented completely different scenes. Shunchi, what's happening? What just occurred? It happened too fast. No one could see that scene clearly. Only two people saw it clearly. Hyon Juyin and Ryoma Takashi. Especially Ryoma Takashi. His shock was greater than anyone's. Dujun's fist was several times faster than Shunchi, who punched first. Precise to a chilling degree. Crash! Shunchi collapsed to his knees. Blood poured from his mouth. White teeth also fell to the ground. Dujun's fist had struck Shunchi's mouth with perfect precision. Shunchi's upper and lower 10 teeth were completely knocked out just like that. Shunchi's 10 front teeth were instantly cleared, but he had already gone mentally insane from the instantaneous blow. Dujun left Shunchi where he was, his gaze turning toward the back, because, from the beginning, the target was never a small fry like Shunchi. Dujun's gaze settled on Ryoma Takashi. Even so, Dujun wasn't impatient enough to immediately entangle with Ryoma Takashi. One more provocation was needed, and Dujun knew clearly who could play the role of this catalyst. Dujun gently pressed down on Shunchi's shoulder, even if not for provocation. Since Shunchi had specially taken a punch, Dujun had absolutely no intention of stopping there. That right shoulder that had struck Dujun's face, Dujun's gaze still remained on Ryoma Takashi. Just like that, he applied force with an expressionless face. Crack! Shunchi's shoulder blade was completely shattered, beyond recovery. He convulsed violently and collapsed. Bastard, you bastard! That's enough! Imperial Guild members stared in shock at Dujun's cruel methods, their whole bodies trembling, as if they might charge forward at any moment, even letting out crude shouts. However, Ryoma Takashi just lightly raised his hand and controlled the situation. This alone was enough to fully suggest the relationship between Ryoma Takashi and the Imperial Guild members. It's you. Ryoma Takashi stared intently at Dujun. Seeing Dujun didn't respond, Ryoma Takashi continued. I've been curious about who Korea's newly promoted S-rank hero was. So it was you. Called Seo Dujun, right? Won't live much longer, because your reactions are too slow. Hearing Dujun's response, Ryoma Takashi burst out laughing. Do you know what I think when I see you Koreans? Arrogant to an unbearable degree. Just makes me want to kill you all. Ryoma Takashi's entire body began emanating killing intent. Just because you defeated such a guy, you think you can even look down on me? This was how Ryoma Takashi mercilessly abandoned that person who had flattered him like his own tongue. Shunchi, seeing this scene, one corner of Dujun's eye twitched. In the world of destruction, Dujun considered the most despicable type of group. The person he least wanted to see again was someone like Ryoma Takashi, whether subordinates or companions. When desperately fighting for survival in the past, this was absolutely intolerable behavior. Dujun didn't want to say more. Walking straight toward Ryoma Takashi, Dujun, Hyon Juyin urgently called his name to stop him. I'll take responsibility. Dujun's resolute voice seemed to say, don't interfere. Hyon Juyin could only close her mouth. Haha, responsibility. What responsibility can a guy like you take? If you knew Korean, you should have said so earlier. Seeing Ryoma Takashi understood his and Hyon Juyin's conversation, Dujun frowned, as if finding speaking Japanese troublesome. From now on, I'll use Korean. There's nothing much to say anyway. Ryoma Takashi ignored Dujun's words, instead carefully observing his footsteps, then sneered mockingly, quickly gripping the sword hilt at his waist. Then, without warning, drew his blade. Sword energy flashed like lightning, flying straight forward. Ryoma Takashi's sword drawing technique was his signature skill, not only in Japan, but enjoyed top reputation worldwide. Ryoma Takashi's sword drawing was simple and fast, with tremendous power. Countless monsters had died under it before they could even react. This showed that while he verbally despised Dujun, when facing him, he absolutely wouldn't allow himself the slightest negligence. Dangerous. Hyeon Juyeon couldn't help warning Dujun, then closed her mouth. Even rank monsters would have their limbs severed by Ryoma Takashi's sword. However, that powerful sword energy dissipated powerlessly before Dujun's palm. The person who couldn't believe the scene before his eyes most was Ryoma Takashi himself. This time it's also legitimate self-defense. Dujun's cold voice made Ryoma Takashi feel weak in the knees for the first time. As soon as he finished speaking, Dujun's shoulder swayed slightly. The distance between Dujun and Ryoma Takashi was ideal for executing sword drawing techniques. Ryoma Takashi had executed his sword drawing technique without warning, precisely because he held the advantage in distance. At just such a distance, Dujun extended his fist. Ryoma Takashi's head shook violently, tilting backward. Blood droplets splattered in the air. At the same time, white particles like freshly popped popcorn exploded in the air. Ryoma Takashi stumbled backward, covering his mouth with his hands. Blood flowed down between his fingers. Cold wind rushed into his mouth, just like Shunchi. Ryoma Takashi's mouth had also been smashed. How is this possible? Ryoma Takashi was horrified by the fact that his mouth had been smashed by mere wind pressure. What shocked him was he hadn't even been able to properly react to an attack from a hero who had just been promoted to S rank. That guy is strong. Ryoma Takashi was considered strong among heroes, so he could understand the person before him was strong enough to overturn all his common sense. There was one more thing. Dujun also roughly broke convention. Dujun stepped forward, closing the distance with Ryoma Takashi, directly grabbing his collar. This time he couldn't even resist. Before being grabbed by the collar, Ryoma Takashi tried to break free from Dujun's grip. On his collar, however, an irresistible force lifted Ryoma Takashi's body. A force powerful enough to overturn the world made Ryoma Takashi's spine feel as if it would break, the excruciating pain making him scream. Dujun looked at Ryoma Takashi's face, twisted with pain, and directly punched down. Crack bang, crack bang. Dujun's fists made no distinction between face and torso, violently pummeling Ryoma Takashi's body. Imperial Guild members were completely stiff from Dujun's one-sided violence. That exceeded all common sense, though Ryoma Takashi, whom they absolutely obeyed and worshipped like a god, was suffering indiscriminate beating. No one could move. They were completely suppressed by Dujun's overwhelming presence and brutal violence.